Good morning. Welcome to the Mayor's Weekly. We're pleased to be with you today. And joining me today is our Director of Park and Rec, Peter Cosmiano. And we want to talk about several things. I think it's the general mindset, I know for me, and you think about Park and Rec, that's something that caters to young folks, and by and large, that's what happens. But the spectrum is broader than that, and we're going to talk about some things that are benefiting a broad range spectrum toward the end of our conversation. But what I know about Park and Rec is that there's a big demand that kicks in, and this time of year you work through that, you get a little slowdown in the summertime, and then fall demand kicks back in to meet all the programs that's up and running. But Peter, how long have you been with us?
I think we're going, just finished about 7 years.
7 years,
Yeah.
okay. And well, nobody knows better than you what happens, and when the surges come, I guess,
Sure.
And we're at that point. Peter, I know right now, as we speak, weather permitting, we have some things happening. I'll let you talk about, and some of the things that you're preparing for spring, and then we'll move along and talk about some of our recent improvements and the way of playground equipment, and let you give a good overview of that. And then maybe we wrap up and talk a little bit about pickleball.
Sure.
That's becoming a popular thing.
Yep, it is. Well, in Parks and Rec, we've got a saying that when we're busiest when the grass grows, and the grass has been growing a lot lately. And so spring and summer and fall, those are when the outdoor sports are going on. But we want to mention the first thing is the Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Conference. SIAC is having a crossover softball tournament here in Jasper. We're hosting that. That conference is a NCAA Division II conference. There's 15 schools, and the footprint of that conference goes from Ohio, South Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky, Alabama, and Florida. And so 13 of those schools are going to be here in Jasper playing on our fields. They were originally scheduled to play Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but because of the rain and the weather and the field preparations, the tournament administration has moved that for Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And so on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, around midday, 10 or 11 o'clock, we're going to have about 42 softball games, collegiate softball games, going on at Memorial Park. And so we're excited about that. It's a central location to bring all these teams together. But again, it's a NCAA Division II conference crossover tournament.
Well, Peter, that tournament's been coming to our city now for several years, has it not?
It has. I know it's been coming at least 7 years because we've worked
yeah.
it. So I mean, I think
And,
it goes farther back than that.
Well, thank Council Member Willie Moore for he is thinking about that and having a hand in bringing that tournament to our city whenever it started. And Councilmember Moore is a big supporter of that and making it happen. Peter, what I'm excited about in that regard is we're going to get a sportsplex. Our architects are working on that now. When we get that built, those facilities will probably allow us to maybe do more of what you just talked about, or do what we're talking about in an expanded manner.
Absolutely. I think, anytime we have more facilities, more fields, more gym space, the programming kind of seems to follow, or we can fill those fields and we can fill the gyms, I can tell you that.
That's right. Well, Peter, talk a little bit about the other things that you and your staff, and before we get into that, I hear things sometimes, and I think, and this is not unusual, people to think, well, you just run out and get one ball field taken care of, and but the magnitude of our park and rec program, very few people grasp that. You've got Park and Rec maintenance, you've got your staff, whatever. Off the top of your head, how many employees are involved in that? And I'm talking about this year round. Do you?
I would say between programming, between maintenance, between, setting up chairs in the Civic Center.
Yeah.
It's not just the gyms, it's not just the fields. We probably wrangle about 25 to 30 around to come and help us out with those things.
Yeah. Substantial payroll tying just to
Yeah.
Park and Rec. Okay, Peter, the other things that you and your folks are working on to get ready for spring.
Well, we've got our spring sports going, which is baseball, softball. You were talking about the facilities, so we just went through and scheduled all of our fields, all of our teams, all of our practices. We've got about 40 groups that we are having practice spots on 16 of our fields, and those are 7 days a week. There are about 350 kids signed up between 5 and 12 years old, but for t-ball, softball, and baseball, and then there's also some outside groups. And so, like I said, the grass is growing. Our maintenance crew's cutting it. They're lining it. We're scheduling fields and scheduling all those teams. And so practices are going on now. You'll see if you drive around the city in the evenings. You'll see the lights. You'll see the fields. You'll see people everywhere. And then around the first week of April, that's when all the season starts.
Well, Peter, we don't live in a vacuum, do we? It
Nope.
rains here, it storms here, other things happen in the city, and we don't claim to get it right 100% of the time, but our commitment is to do that. And but there's going to be sometimes there's going to be things that are beyond our control.
Certainly, our part of our philosophy in with weather is with all of our outdoor sports. If we can play, we're going to play. If it's just impossible for us to play because of field conditions or for weather forecast, then safety is important. But if we can do whatever we can do, we're going to try to get on the field and keep those fields open so our kids can play.
Peter, a really bright spot in the Park and Rec area is something that I've been excited about, pleased that we had the money to do, I think, pretty much a complete overhaul, take down, rebuild our playgrounds. Is that?
Oh.
And probably spent, when it's all said and done, we'll spend over $1 million on that. And folks, we didn't have to go to the bank to get a loan to do that. That's those things are paid for as they were put in place. And Peter, talk about that. It is a bright spot.
Well, thanks to the mayor, thanks to the council and the city administration, we have been able to look at some playground projects. Playgrounds are really expensive, but they're really important. If you look at some of our playgrounds, you'll see kids and you'll see grandparents and you'll see parents, you'll see uncles and aunts. It's a facility, or our playground facilities. Honestly, they touch probably the widest range of our community. With if parents are working, then grandparents are taking their little kids to the playgrounds. And so we've got three. Of course, we've got plans for all the playgrounds in the city, but the latest three that we have made improvements on are Frisco, the playground over at Frisco by Southside Pool and by the Frisco Gym over there. Gamble Park has just been recently completed. And that's a nice one. That gets used a lot by a lot of younger kids and folks with strollers and parents and grandparents with strollers. And then probably one of the biggest projects was out at North Jasper. And so I would encourage the community to go out there and look at these playgrounds. Again, these are because the city council and the mayor made it possible financially. and saw the need for these things, and so we're really appreciative of that and the community. And so there's, there's always, we always have plans, but we don't always have money. Lately, we've had money, so we appreciate that.
Well, Peter, we'll go back to Gamble Park and what I see that, and haven't been out to North Jasper yet, but the utilization at Gamble is just tremendous, isn't it?
It's incredible. It's actually to the point that we're having to look at some additional parking situations for people to come out there. So Gamble was historically kind of a neighborhood park, but it's turned into attracting folks from all across the city. And so while it is situated in a great place and there is some parking around, with the addition of some portable restrooms and some parking spaces, I think it will serve a larger part of the community.
Well, Peter, I think we know that the expanded parking is going to happen. We have our engineering firm looking at that, so we're smart how we expand and draw the parking line so you don't have people backing over it. But Peter touched on the cost, and before I came here, I certainly had not had any experience putting in playground equipment, and when the bid came in for that, it kind of threw me in a state of shock. That playground equipment, I'm not talking about buying any land, I'm talking about just the playground equipment, probably bumped over $300,000.
You can, and that's kind of on the low end, to be honest with you, Mayor. The good thing is that they usually last a while. The playground equipment that we have replaced was original. A lot of it was original to the parks, and so I don't think I'll be coming to you in 5 years asking to replace that.
You know, I just, when the bid came in, I said, well, that can't be right, because what you do, you look at 300,000+ for that, and you look at Jasper, Alabama, that amount of money will still build a pretty nice home in
Sure,
Jasper, Alabama.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And,
It's a quality of life
I was shocked
amenity.
about that. Now, Peter, I know some work has been done, maybe some is planned in the playground area at the natatorium. Give us a little overview on what's happened or going to happen
Well,
there.
at the natatorium, we had some issues with the splash pad and the playground being a little bit closer than we wanted them to be to each other. And so Stacy Smothers, the natatorium manager, came up with a plan, and we talked about it, of just trying to reconfigure some of the splash pad elements. And so you could go out there and either use the playground and not get wet, or use a splash pad, as it is. And so what they're doing out there is they're just kind of moving and reconfiguring a couple of those things to where, it will be a better use for whoever comes out there.
Good. Well, that's another good facility for our citizens to use. One of the things that seems to get lost in organizations, and I can say that from my previous life, it has what's going on and what has gone on in the city has similarities, is people tend to forget that things wear out. The roof at the natatorium, architect that it was designed, I'm sure to some degree for aesthetics, but it doesn't matter how pretty it is, it wears out. That roof is worn out. The roof at our police department is worn out. We're working now to get bid specifications to put new roofs at the natatorium and at the police department. And when that's all said and done, that'll probably approach $1 million to put those roofs in place. And but if you do it correctly, you don't run up to the edge or to the brink and fall off. You keep that in mind and you take it a piece at a time. I'd rather not have to be involved or call on the council to fund replacing 2 high-dollar roofs at the same time. Mm-hmm. Shouldn't happen that way, but going forward, I think we can keep that from happening. But a lot of money being plugged into our park and rec effort, and I don't begrudge that one bit. I think it's provides great opportunities for our citizens that we talked about, and what we've talked about thus far ties pretty much to young folks. Peter, you were at our last work session, and we had a nice group of folks that came here in support of expanding pickleball facilities. Maybe talk a little bit about pickleball and what we talked about today and what we may see down the road.
Well, pickleball is one of the fastest growing recreational sports. It has been over the last 3 to 5 years, and pickleball has found its way to Jasper. And so, and I think we have to respond in kind. But there's groups, there's people that are playing pickleball. We have outdoor courts that we've painted lines on the tennis courts out at Bevel. Those are being used, and we've also brought in some into Swan Gym when it's not being used for other things, and provided the pickleball community in Jasper. And I guess that's how we should refer to them, as pickleballers or the pickleball community. But it's a great recreational sport. Here we've got grandparents and kids playing with each other on the court. It's a social activity. Folks are enjoying it. We're not getting out there, and it can be ultra competitive if you want it to be, or it can be a recreational social sport. And so, pickleball, everybody can get out there and learn it. But it has been growing here in Jasper. The learning curve to play it's about 15 minutes. And so you get out there, it's a cross between ping pong, badminton, and tennis. You move a lot less than you do in tennis, especially if you play doubles. And so it's a very attractive activity to a lot of our community that we're trying to get out there and just get moving.
Well, Peter, what's being looked at is adding, I believe, 8 pickleball courts.
Nine
pickleball courts at a cost of probably approaching $300,000. That study is being done now on the viability of the location, and will the soil support it? Does it make sense for that location? I believe that will become a reality, and bringing that together once it's done should move fairly quickly, shouldn't it, Peter?
I think so too. I mean, there's a group out of in the state, and it's a tennis court group, but tennis courts and pickleball courts are kind of in the same vein as each other. That will be great when that happens for Jasper. We'll have the most amount of outdoor pickleball courts in the surrounding area. That will also allow us to host some. Because of the quality of the courts and with the lighting, we'll be able to host some tournaments and get a little bit more into that for our local players. And so they wouldn't have to travel, as some of them are now, just going to Gardendale, going to other places. But maybe we'll be able to bring some of those things in. And it's a racket and a ball, and so the barrier to entry is low. And we encourage everybody to just try to find out a little bit more about it. On Tuesdays this month, Tuesday nights at Swan Gym, we're having beginner pickleball clinics. So Ken Ferris has headed that up as one of the main staff members that's dealing with pickleball, and he had about 50 newcomers, and that's not to say the 50 to 80 to 100 that normally play.
Yeah. Well, Peter, talking about the age spectrum of pickleball players, on Friday with this group, there was an 11-year-old here, and then some folks here that, and I won't call any names, but they, like the mayor of this city, old enough to get a senior discount on a cup of coffee at Jack's. So it appeals to a pretty broad age group, does it not?
It does, and I think our oldest player might be 98. I could be mistaken. It might be about 95, but we've got them all out there, Mayor.
That's great, and I'll be surprised if those pickleball courts do not become a reality. but we want to go about it in the right way, not shoot from the hip, and get it right so those courts can serve far into the future. Well, Peter, I appreciate you joining me. Anything that you might like to add that's going on in Park and Rec this morning?
Well, I think that's about it. But you know, part of our mission is to get people outside, to get them moving, and get them healthy. And so you know, I think between the Parks and Rec for Jasper, the Health Action Partnership through the Livable Communities, I think we're increasing some of those numbers that the city and that the county has had over the past couple of years. And so we're making better progress on that as far as the health of the community goes.
Well, Peter, and we'll wrap up with this. Just times we can't make everybody happy, but one of the things that the council did is they put in place a park board. That park board remains, and if you want to call it the chain of command, if you have suggestions, and my office, my phone rings 24/7. The park board, I think it would be highly improper for me to do something without considering the park board. And if you have problems, whatever, that's a good place to log your complaints, your concerns, or your suggestions. And then, like I said, never feel like that you can't call me, but I want to respect that group of folks. They're volunteers. Thank them for their willingness to serve. And would you agree that would be if they have concern? I mean, certainly can come to you and to our park board.
You know, they could come to me. I think the park board serves a good need to be a voice, to be advocates for what we want to do as a department for the community.
Right.
And so I think as long as we're all lined up together, then you know, because they've got a voice with their city council member that had appointed them. And so, you know, it just kind of gets our mission and our values and what we want to do. It's just another voice to get that out there in the community. So we're thankful for that.
Right, good. Well, Peter, thank you for joining me this morning. Look forward to all the good things that will happen in our Park and Rec, under our Park and Rec umbrella this spring. And any questions, concerns, or whatever, let us hear from you, and we'll do our best to get answers, address any problem that might arise. So thanks again for being with us, and we'll look forward to being with you next week.